Well, I'm at the gun boot making again. And I'm making one for the Marlin. This will be a saddle boot, and it'll be a more conventional, straightforward type boot than that one for the Mauser, which is actually a case, sort of. But this will be a boot that only comes up, part way. It doesn't go the full distance. And I'm thinking I actually will have enough leather left over of this heavy stuff to make one for the 32 Special too. That was kind of my hope. Though the one I'm making will actually be able to handle the 32 Special, and there it will almost be, a full-length case. In fact, I could actually make an end so that it would work as a case. That I could snap on and come over. But like I say, this is more of a generic multi-purpose case. So there's probably other guns that'll fit too. But that's why I made it, what I do, I lay the gun in there, on the piece, right straight, like this. And then I roll it one way and I roll it the other way. And I traced it out, and then I gave myself a little bit extra so I don't bind it in there too much. But I'm now going to stitch this thing back together. And on this one, I won't get real fancy on the toe end here. It'll simply be a rounded, like what a holster is. But I'll go and stitch. And when I do this, I stitch from both ways. I kind of start in the middle of the thing. I'll stitch this end, and then I will come back and start stitching this way and figure out exactly how far I want to stitch, because I don't want to get it, it should come up to about here so that it'll cover the action parts, but still so that you can grab the rifle out of the boot fairly easy. So I'll go stitch. The reason I'm doing this, I really hadn't planned on doing this today, but it rained last night. We had about almost an inch of rain. So I left this leather out in the rain, so I've got it good and soft. So now it's a good time to stitch it. So I'll do this one. Now the reason I said about I start in the middle and work both ways, it saves, like if you have to do a long stretch, you have to have a lot of extra line on this end, and by starting in the middle, it cuts that line amount in half. Because now when I start that other stitch, I'll come back here and start right here. You won't be able to tell. The only thing you do have to watch, a lot of times they'll start out with nice small stitches, and as time goes by, they start out like 1/8 of an inch, pretty soon they're 1/4 inch, and before you know it, they're doing 1/2 inch stitches. So the thing to do is to make sure and keep your stitches as even as you can. And there's ways of doing that. There's a marker that you can use. It's like a spur that you run along and it'll mark the holes, but I can do it freehand well enough. Well, I'm coming kind of to the end over here, but I thought, I've been kind of slacking off and showing you what I'm doing here, but I figure I'll show you when it's done. But what I did, I've got a cutout in here that'll hold the back of the rifle up, but I balance this out very carefully. Then in the front here, I've got 2 tabs that are sewn on, which was a real tough sewing because I'm going through 3 layers of cowl. And this is a heavy hide. But I've got her on there, and she ain't going to come off. But the one thing I was going to say, in working with leather, tools like this, You know, a good awl is indispensable. You know, just for making holes, also for anchoring things in place, you know, before you stitch them to make sure they stay lined up. You know, the more of these you have, the better off you are. And if I remember right, this is one that came from my grandma. But they are indispensable, especially for like going through this real thick leather. You know, you'd probably break a needle, but by poking a hole through it first with the awl, you know, which is real sharp and narrow, I'm able to stitch it with relative ease. Okay, another thing I was going to mention too, when working with leather, you know, leather isn't, you know, it isn't like a plastic. I mean, it was a living animal at one time, so you have to be careful how you cut the leather. You know, because what's going to happen is after you make it, it's going to want to turn back into the shape of a cow. You know, so you really have to be careful. You know, like this was a side of the animal, and I used the part that was up on the back where it's heavy. You know, there's different thicknesses of hide in different places. So it's kind of important to know which part you're working with. You know, because sometimes you buy leather and it's stretched out flat, but if you get it wet and let it dry, like I say, it tries to turn back into a cow, and you'll get odd twists and things in your project. So you do have to be kind of aware of where the leather came from. Okay, here is the done deal. I just got to oil it. You know, difference on this one is not closed up compared to the other one. But, you know, that wasn't my intention on this. Okay, and it hangs on the saddle at about that kind of an angle. That way you clear the neck if the horse turns sharp. Be on the right side, goes underneath the stirrup leather. But you can see everything is protected, but yet it's accessible to get at. Now on this one, I actually left the end open a little bit because this one you can get crap falling in. You know, like grass seeds and leaves or anything like that can fall inside because it is open. You want a way to get them out again. But it looks good. You know, and it carries, you know, the balance point, well, with the gun empty, is right here. So most of the weight is carried by the front, which is why I have the heavy double straps on there. And one single strap on the back. But that should work just fine. And if the horse should come home, I'll stick it on. But I like the way it works. And it is a nice, close fit. You know, and that leather is particularly stiff. You know, so it's a lot of protection. But I'm pleased with it. Well, that's one more down. Now I just got to come up with one for the 32 special. But I got a scheme afoot for that. But it's good to have this one protected.